You are listening to the Life Coach School podcast with Brooke Castillo, episode number 180. 180, you guys. Come on. That's insane. I can't believe how many podcasts I've done. It's so amazing to me to look at that. Cray. So every 10 episodes, I usually do a special episode. So I've done lessons from my teachers. I've had a couple of coaches on. I've shared lessons from my life. The past every 10 episodes have been kind of just special editions. And this one is no exception. I decided to do lessons from my business. I had done one called Lessons of My Lifetime, and now I'm doing one called Lesson from My Business. And the reason why is because I just added an entrepreneurial course to Scholars. And so I've been working on that course pretty diligently and really thinking about all the things that I know about business. Now, I've run my own business for 10 years, just the Life Coach School. 3 years before that, I had my own Brooke Castillo coaching business. And before that, I owned hair salon that I ran. That was insane. That was crazy. And so I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, and I have learned a lot about business. And so there's a lot of things that when you have been immersed in something for so long that you begin to take for granted. And so when people ask me questions, I forget that not everyone knows this stuff. So I decided to create the course, and it's so good because it just takes everything that is common sense to me now, everything that I use daily in my business, and puts it in a way so newer business owners can learn from my progress and learn from my mistakes and learn from the things that I've done. So I wanted to encapsulate a little bit of that here in the podcast today, because I want to share with all of you, whether you're in Scholars or not, lessons from my business. What's so interesting is that since I have moved to Texas, we needed to close down our California corporation and open up a Texas corporation. And so it's been kind of surreal, I think, in some ways, because we've wanted to find a new accountant and new banking and new financial advisors. And so it's been this milestone kind of for us to talk about our business in a new way and to get new people involved. We also are building a building, as I have mentioned many times on the podcast, but we've actually gotten to the point where we signed the deal. And we have the land and we're building a building, which is crazy. So we're going to have a kitchen in the building. So we were just talking about what we want in the kitchen. And then I was just talking to the landscapers about what we want in the landscaping. And I'm like, who am I? This is so awesome. I can't believe that we're really doing this most amazing thing. And so I wanted to kind of go down memory lane with all of you and teach you, or tell you, I should say, the lessons that I have learned from being an entrepreneur, from being in business. The first one is that the path to success is paved with failure. I can't even tell you how much this lesson sets me free. So when you look at all of the things that I tried to do in business and failed at doing, and all the things that I tried and succeeded at doing, there are way more failures than there are successes. And I want to let you guys know that I consider a failure something that didn't work the way I had planned, so I don't see it as such a negative thing. But I'm going to say that I think the biggest failures for me are the ones where I failed ahead of time, where I didn't even try to do something because I was so afraid of failing. That I consider a failure too. I don't let myself off the hook. Well, I can't consider a failure because I never tried. Not trying is the biggest fail. And I'm going to say that most of my failures are not trying failures, which is crazy, right? Because a lot of people that know me and look at me think that I try so many things and think that I go after so many things. But there's a lot of things that I was really afraid to go after until I got to a certain level in my self-coaching. So I think the willingness to be uncomfortable and the willingness to fail is the most important skill you can develop as an entrepreneur, is a willingness to fail responsibly and often. And so I will say that especially these past few years where my business has just exploded has been my biggest willingness to fail. And I've talked about this on the podcast, but I remember a conversation I was having with my business partner, Chris, and my bookkeeper, financial advisor of all things expenses in my business. We were talking about changing over to self-coaching scholars. I had told him that I really wanted to work with clients as well as coaches. And I had been doing a lot of really high level coaching, and I wanted to do coaching that more people could afford. So instead of charging thousands of dollars for my coaching as the only way to work with me, I wanted to offer something for hundreds of dollars. And so when we introduced that, it was kind of counterintuitive. Most coaches keep raising their prices as they move higher in business, as they get more exposure. And I was actually wanting to do the opposite. And so there was hesitancy, let me say, from my crew. And one of the things that I said to them is the worst thing that can happen is I'm just going to do what I'm doing now. And I think that's true for most of us all the time. Like, we're so afraid that something won't work. Well, it's not working now. So the worst thing that can happen is what's now. That's the worst thing. That's the fail. The fail is what you're doing now. And I've seen that so many times in my life when there's things that I can't, or I feel like I can't do, or I have doubt about doing. I remind myself the worst that can happen is you just end up right here. The best that can happen is worth it. So worth it. So that's lesson number one. The path to success is paved with failure. And number two is discomfort is the currency to fulfill your dreams. Now, you guys have heard me talking a lot about this idea of 50-50, 50% negative, 50% positive emotion in your life. And that is how your brain is rigged to interpret the world. And I think one of the problems with success for many people is that we believe that once we get to success, the land of success, that we will no longer feel uncomfortable. We will no longer have negative emotion. That is the promise that we make to ourselves. That's a lie. So we tell ourselves, well, as soon as I make $1 million, as soon as I'm a size 6, as soon as I get married, as soon as I graduate, right? As soon as I get to this milestone in my life, then I'm going to be happy. Then I'm never going to have a negative emotion again. That's when everything's going to come together. And what I have found to be true is that the more success I get, the more success my clients get, the equal amount of discomfort that they feel. Success does not relieve us of our discomfort. Discomfort is part of the human condition. It doesn't matter how successful you get. And this is so evident, you guys, when we look at all of the crazy successful musicians. I was just thinking about these guys the other day. Like, how can you be the most successful musician, have screaming, raving fans, be making ridiculous amounts of money, doing your art for a living, and be overdosing on drugs, be committing suicide? How is that even possible? I think one of the problems is in those situations is people feel like they should be happy all of the time because they've achieved that success. It's such a lie, right? They're like, well, I'm Justin Bieber. I'm a superstar. I have all these screaming fans. I have all of this money. I'm crazy successful. I should be happy. And so not only are they not happy all of the time, but they're unhappy about not being happy all of the time. And that increases that negativity that isn't necessary. So I really want to offer that success doesn't change your level of happiness. And people say, well, if it doesn't change your level of happiness, why would you do it? And I said, well, that presupposes that the only reason you do something is to be happy. But if you can start with knowing that you're about as happy as you're going to be about half of the time, and that even when you're more successful, you're going to be equally unhappy and unhappy, but it's just going to be a totally different flavor. Success is what inspires growth, and I think it's what keeps life interesting. I do not think success creates happiness. And that's so important, because you look at people that are crazy successful, that are crazy workaholics, that are using work to buffer, because I think they think that happiness is just around the corner. Just another $1 million, just another acquisition, just one more employee, right? It's never there. Happiness is either here or it's nowhere. That's how it works. Number 3, doubt has you questioning everything. Part of the human experience is doubt. Doubt serves us in many ways and tries to keep us safe and protected. But it has you questioning things it shouldn't have you questioning. It has you second guessing yourself. And I want to offer that if you're aware of that and you start questioning everything, it becomes background noise. And this is what has been happening to me is I start doubting, oh my God, should we be buying a building? Oh my God, should we really be doing this? This is crazy. I keep talking like, where are the adults? Shouldn't someone be supervising us? What are we doing? Can we really afford this? This is crazy. Going through all of that doubt, all of those questions in my mind. And I think it's important to listen to some of those questions and answer them honestly, but then also to notice that it's part of the human condition to doubt growth. And when you know that doubt is part of growth, then you keep growing, even though it's there, because you know that it's part of it. You don't let it freak you out. Number 4, changing your mind is very expensive. I want to tell you that I have watched this in my business, and I have watched this in my students' businesses, my students who are entrepreneurs. What happens is you get this doubt, you get this discomfort, and you want relief from it. And one of the ways to relieve yourself from doubt and discomfort is to change your mind. So for example, let's say I'm about to build this building. It's a very expensive building. It's really going to create some overhead that I am going to now be obligated to pay, right? So I'm in a situation right now where I don't have very little overhead in my business because I don't have a building. I don't have a lot of assets that I need to keep paying on. And so if you're in Scholars, you'll see that in my behind the scenes video, I talk about kind of the process we went through to decide to buy a building. But regardless, if I start questioning that, right, and I start doubting that, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, and that doubt feels icky and that doubt feels uncomfortable, one of the ways to relieve that doubt is just to change my mind and say, I've changed my mind, I'm not going to buy a building. Then I feel relief from that doubt. That is a very expensive thing to do. I have watched students do that, give in to that doubt and change their mind with their niches, with their businesses, with their commitments to their clients, with everything. So paying attention to how often you want to change your mind to get that immediate relief as a form of emotional management will cost you millions of dollars, literally, if you keep doing it. So please pay attention. When you make a decision about a business, about a niche, about a building, have your back on that decision. Your brain is going to rally against it. Your brain will rally against growth. It's innocent. It's innocently doing it. It's trying to protect you. You need to stay strong and have your own back. The next one is giving up is very expensive. How many dreams have you given up on? It's very similar to changing your mind. How many dreams have you given up on because you wanted that relief? This feels hard. This feels uncomfortable. I'm worried about failing. I know I'll quit, and all of those feelings will go immediately away. And they do. But then you have nothing. You have given up. And so you get that temporary relief of not having to deal with your own discomfort and your own doubt, but then you also don't have your business. You also don't have your niche. You also have given up on the progress that you were making towards that success in your life. The next one is blaming versus responsibility for success. And I want to offer that it's so easy as you go through building a business to blame yourself or to blame other people for your lack of success. And what I have noticed is when you take responsibility, 100% responsibility for your success, all of a sudden decisions become much more clear. Answers become much more clear. What you need to do becomes much more clear because you're not blaming, you're not abdicating responsibility, you're owning every single bit of it. And that takes you to a place where not only are you responsible for your own success, but you get to take full credit for it, as you should. So my story of being an entrepreneur started when I was very young. I knew I wanted to own my own business. My father had owned a business called Broadway Shoe Repair. My grandfather owned a business called Christensen Diamonds, and he manufactured and engineered diamond drill bits to drill for oil. And he had been extremely poor his whole life and started that business and was able to build a huge amount of wealth for himself and his family. And I was always so inspired and so excited about that. And I've always been very ambitious and very interested in being in charge of my own life. And so I knew that I would always be an entrepreneur. And so, I started some businesses when I was very young. When I was 16, I started a personal training business called Beachable Bodies. I wanted to be a personal trainer. And then my first real business that I did was my hair salon called Europa Color Salon and Spa. That was a spa that I opened with my hairdresser. We had a conversation one day and decided to start a business. Neither one of us knew what the heck we were doing. We created the most beautiful building. I didn't know how to manage employees. I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know how to read a financial statement, but we sure had a great time that first year. I really struggled managing all of those employees. It was $1 million business the first year, and we had 25 employees, and I was 25 years old. And I have to say, I did not do a great job. One of the things I did with all my employees is I would have little workshops with them where I would coach them and teach them. I was going to find my way to be a coach no matter what it took. And so I did that. And that was the part they seemed to like the most. But we sold that business after a year. And the woman that bought it was actually one of the buyers for the business for Aveda. And she still owns it to this day. The business is still there in Fort Collins, Colorado. Europa Color Salon and Spa. She's still running it, which is amazing to me. She bought the building and expanded it. So it's really fun to kind of see my first little baby still alive, and even though it's been adopted by somebody else, alive and kicking. And to be able to sell that business when I did was such a gift. Then I decided to become a coach, and I knew that I wanted to run my own business as a coach. And I started as a coach when there was nothing for us as coaches in terms of how to build our businesses and how to market our businesses. And part of me feels like that was such a gift because I kind of had to figure everything out on my own. And learning that process, learning how to figure out what works and what doesn't from the ground up is a meta skill that I have now. So a lot of times I feel like some of my students are like, well, nobody taught me that. Well, nobody showed me that. Well, that wasn't a good enough way to learn that. And I always laugh. I'm like, really? Because I never even knew this. No one ever taught me this. And I, was able to find my way. And so I think sometimes when there are people to ask and teachers to show us the way, we don't build up that resilience and we don't utilize our own intelligence, our own wisdom to find our own personal answers for ourselves. And so I love my story of building my business because it just really was kind of from scratch. And if I was building my business now, of course, I would do it much more quickly. There's so many more resources out there. But I think one of the things that I really learned back then, when we didn't really have Facebook ads, we didn't really have, funnels, we didn't have landing pages, none of that stuff was there. But what I did have was a great product and a belief in it and an ability to make offers to people. And that is business. Business, I can sum it up so easily. Find people who have a problem they want to pay to solve, and then serve them like nobody else. Over deliver to them like nobody else does. That is the best way I know of any business, how to build any business. And if you coach yourself in your mind, there's no reason. I feel like we live in the time of entrepreneurial opportunity for everyone. There are so many free resources, so many ways that we can build our own businesses. I think it is so incredibly exciting. When I very first became a coach, I wanted to write a book. I've always read books. I've always been totally into books. And so I went about trying to find a publisher to give me a book deal. And it was such a cumbersome, painful process to write a book proposal and try to go out and get an agent and try to get a publishing company. And then the publishing company wanted to change everything I had written, and they wanted to change my voice and change how marketable I was and everything like that. So I decided to really go about writing my own book and being able to give it to my clients. And it was a really long process to get it together. And now there's just so many options. You can write a book so lightning fast. And there is no, I don't feel like any more red tape. You don't have to go through a big publishing organization with all that red tape anymore. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that the way the world is heading so that individuals can compete with large organizations is the most fantastic thing in the world. I absolutely love it for all of us. The next thing I want to talk about is earning versus getting. And I don't know how much of this story I've told actually on the podcast, but one of the things that happened to me, or I happened to my life to do, is I joined a cult. There's no other way to describe it. I was involved in a martial arts studio that really was a cult. And when I turned 21, I inherited some money and gave all my money away to this cult. So for me, one of the reasons why I did that at the time is I felt really strongly about never feeling like I was a slave to money, never feeling like I was dependent on my money to take care of me and afraid of losing my money. So I didn't want any kind of inheritance to be in charge of my life. I wanted to be in charge of my life. I wanted to be in charge of my money. And one of the things I learned really young, and I don't know where I learned it, but I think I might have taught it to myself, was my mom always taught me, don't ever be dependent on a man. You always want to be independent. You want to be an independent woman. You want to be able to take care of yourself. And I do believe I learned that from her, and I believe that about her. But the other thing I didn't want to be was dependent on money. I didn't want to feel afraid of losing it. And so I wanted to be in a position that if I lost my money, I would have the ability to make it back. I wouldn't be afraid of it. I wouldn't be destitute. I wouldn't be like a completely different person without money, right? And I think because my mother had inherited money and I saw her kind of struggle with that, which is crazy, right? We think about, we win the lottery, we inherit money, then we got it made. But it interferes with your desire to work hard, because a lot of us work hard for money, right? So if you already have a bunch of money, your motivation to get out there and be uncomfortable, to go through that self-doubt isn't as strong because you've already kind of created the financial abundance that some of us are driven to create by building our businesses. And so for me, earning my money was so much more important to me than getting it, inheriting it, having someone give it to me. I wanted to earn it. I wanted to feel the ability to earn it because I knew that once I was able to earn it, I could earn more. And I've seen that over and over and over in my clients. Once you know how to earn $100,000 as an entrepreneur, you can do it in any market. Because so much of that earning, so much of that first year of earning that $100,000 is about getting through your doubt. It's about getting through your own mental barriers. That's why I created Self-Coaching Scholars. That's why I did a whole money training within Scholars, because I see it way too often with students, way too often with people who are struggling so hard to get through that doubt. They don't believe it's possible for them to make $100,000 in their own business. But I'll tell you, once you do it once, then it's as good as done. It's kind of like riding a bike, right? Once you've done it, you can do it again. The next thing I want to say, this is in my notes I wrote, it's hard. Yeah, it is. So what? I'm so glad it was hard. Honestly, I high-five myself because I'm a total dork. I look at myself in the mirror and give myself a wink sometimes because I'm like, girl, you did that. You went through it, right? You figured out how to not overeat. You figured out how to not overdrink. You figured out how not to be a drug alcoholic mess like a lot of your family was. You did that work. I did the mental work that was required to do that. I figured out how to create a business that supports me, that I can have my husband as a business partner. We can support our family with our business in the way that we want to live. Like, what? That's so amazing. And it's not easy. No one's handing this to me. Nobody's saying like, oh yeah, just, smile and look pretty. And that's like one of the funniest things. I love to read about actresses who get paid ridiculous amounts of money and models who get paid ridiculous amount of money for being pretty. You look at what their grueling days are like. You look at what it actually takes to be an actress, to be a personality, to be a talent like that. It's amazing what is required of them. You look at these people that are singers, that are musicians, that turn into business owners. They work their butts off. But I think for some of us, we look at them and we think, oh, they make it look easy, so it must be easy. I do not think it is easy. I want it to be hard, right? I want to be hard because at the other side of it, when I've earned it, I want to say, hell yeah, I earned it. Hell yes, I'm proud of myself. And I want to keep going with my doubt. I want to keep going with my discomfort. And I want it to be hard because you know what? I can do some hard things. Make it hard. No problem. Don't you want to feel like you can handle hard? So many of us are like, I'm so tired. I just want it to be easy. Yeah, well, it's easy. Just don't do anything. That's easy. But if you want to really see what you've got, if you really want to make your human life delight you, do some hard stuff. That will delight you. One of the questions that I get a lot from people who are outside of the life coaching industry is, you're so successful as a life coach. Why aren't more people as successful as you? And one of the things I used to get a lot is, the reason why you're successful is because you train coaches. And, you're selling something that will allow other people to make money. So it's an investment. And I totally agree with that. So what I mean by that is if someone pays me tuition to become a life coach, that's such a brilliant investment because whatever money they invest with me, they're going to make 100 times that probably in their lifetime as a coach, right? It's like investing in school. So you invest this money in tuition and then you get an education. Like if you're investing as a doctor, right? You get this, it's worth it because you go through the schooling, and then you become a doctor, and then you can make a certain amount of money. Same with life coaching, same with most professions, right? So people would say, well, you're able to make money as a life coach trainer because people are investing. And I said, are you guys kidding me? Mental health is the most important investment anyone can make. Much more important than investing in your job, much more important than investing in your business. If you don't have your mental health, you have nothing. You have no success. You have no happiness if you don't have your mental health. I think selling mental health is the most important thing I sell. And I'm going to sell it all day, and I'm going to keep selling it, and I'm going to hard sell it, and I'm going to sell it to every person I can because it's the most important thing. I think it's selling the cure for genuine unhappiness. If you had the cure for cancer, you wouldn't be like, oh, I don't like the hard sell. I don't really want to push anybody. I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. You'd be like, listen, you have cancer. I have the cure. Buy this immediately. And if they said no, you'd be like, what are you talking about? You have to buy this right now. And if they were like, oh, I'm just not sure. I have the time right now. You'd be like, stop it. It's the cure. That's how I feel. So like when people say to me, I don't know if I should invest in a life coach. I don't know if I should invest in my mental health. I'm like, stop it. Do you have a car? Are you investing in your car? Sell your car to invest in your mental health. Come on. It's the most important thing. So when people ask me, why aren't more people as successful as you? I think the reason why, the only reason why, is because of the unwillingness to be uncomfortable, the desire to find relief and to not be uncomfortable. I love working. I love it. And work is hard and work is uncomfortable, right? But I absolutely love it. And I love resting and I love playing with my dogs and I love enjoying my kids. I love all of it. But loving to work because I love earning, I love success. I love all of it. That's what I think is a huge missing piece for a lot of my students. Now, I talked to one of my employees and one of my colleagues, Jody Moore. One of the things that we share in common is we're obsessed with marketing. We're obsessed with business. We're obsessed with learning about business and how it works. And I always have been. I've always listened to business books right along with those self-help books. Like it's always been an interest of mine. And I think that is one of the reasons why I have this magical combination. And I think most people in my space who are successful are just as obsessed with business as they are with what they're teaching. And I do think this is one of the reasons why people who sell marketing, people who sell business do so well with it, because what they're teaching is what they're actually doing. I always say to my coach, Frank Kern, I'm like, what you're selling is what you're doing in your business. That is very different from me. What I'm selling in my business is mental health. What I'm doing in my business is business. I have 2 full skill sets I have to have. He only has to have 1. He always just rolls his eyes at me. So he doesn't really listen to me, which is totally fine. So I just want to share a couple of stories, just really briefly. 2 of my coaches. One of my coaches, Katrina, some of you know well, she's in Scholars. She's a physician who decided she didn't want to be a physician anymore. And now she coaches physicians. She was on the podcast too. She coaches physicians who want to lose weight, which is so ironic, right? Because I'm always saying doctors don't know anything about weight loss. They are not trained in weight loss. It's crazy to me. So Katrina came to me, and when she signed up for coach training, she also signed up for my Stopover Eating Masterclass. So at the same time she became a coach, she also lost 50 pounds. She also created a 6-figure business in her first year as a coach. She's just a crazy, awesome superstar. And one of the things that we talk about, the 2 of us together, is that anytime she bumped up against that doubt, she was willing to hear me out on it. So I'm ahead of her, not by much, but I'm ahead of her in this game of coaching and building a coaching business. So she would ask me questions because she was doubtful about something I was teaching her. And I would just tell her, listen, I have been here before. I know what you're going through. Trust me on this. And she did. Now, she's crazy smart, crazy talented, dedicated to serving her clients. She understands their pain. She has all the ingredients and all the intelligence. But I will say many of my students do. But the differentiating factor with her was that she was able to feel her doubt and overcome it instead of give in to it and quit. Time after time after time again. The other student that I was going to tell you about was Jody Moore. She started a coaching business for Mormon moms, very specific niche. Notice both of those coaches who've done crazy successful picked very specific niches. They did not change their mind even once, even though they tried a couple of times. Actually, Jody didn't, but Katrina did a couple of times, tried to change. I just kept telling them, no, do not change that niche. One of the things for Jody Moore is she just believed that it was possible. So even though you try a bunch of stuff and it doesn't work, you just keep going. You just keep doing it until it does work. That's what we call massive action. One of the things that I want to tell you all to do is to focus on the winners. If there is someone in your industry that is doing really well, then doing really well is possible in your industry, period. I don't understand it when people come to me and tell me about unsuccessful people. They come to me and there's like, yeah, there's people that are unsuccessful in life coaching. So what? Let's focus on the people that are successful, right? There's lots of people that try something and then give up. So what? Those people aren't relevant to you. Let me talk just a little bit about being a CEO. And for me, I've been the CEO of my company forever, and it hasn't meant much until I started hiring people to work for me and people who now their livelihood depends on me doing a good job at my job. And I feel like the privilege of being a CEO is earned and the responsibility is huge. I am very demanding as a boss. I expect excellence. And I was thinking about this recently because I've hired one of my coaches to work for me very closely as my assistant. And I don't even want to call her my assistant. She's like the super assistant, right? So I hired her to work for me, and my expectation of her is so high, and she always delivers. Right? I give her feedback. I'm like, no, you did that wrong. Do it again. You did that wrong. Do it again. Do it this way. And I'm tough with her and I'm demanding with her, and she always rises to the occasion. And it makes me wonder, like, wouldn't it be great if I could be a CEO within your own business, to be demanding of what you do in your own business and then have you do it, right? Because I feel like if everybody would work as hard as she does, like in their own business, there's no limit to what you can do. But, you know, it's like, when's the last time someone like really expected a lot from you and was like, come on, you can do better. Do this at this level, right? It's tough. You don't want to be on the receiving end of that, right? You want to be on the receiving end of approval all the time. But when you have a tough boss that expects a lot of you, you can bloom in that environment. And that's what I see happening. Now, I don't ever want you to work for a boss that is not loving to you. That's not what I'm talking about at all. Your boss needs to love you, period, and needs to love humans. That's important. I'm not talking about screaming and yelling. I love my employees, but I expect them to be A players. Like, you got to rise up, mama. Come on. And then when they do, it's such a sense of accomplishment for me and for them and for our business. So I want to say that, like, it's a privilege to be a CEO because you really are in this position where you are responsible for serving the people that work for you. And I think you're responsible for expecting their best game, expecting their best stuff. Right? And so, like, for example, if you work for me, we require you to take 6 weeks of paid vacation. This is like a new requirement. And one of the things that we expect is that there is someone else in our organization that can cover for you, right? So that's how organized that you have to be. We also expect that when you're at work, You do work in your time. You do work when you want to do it, but you are measured on your results, not on the amount of time you spend. And I love being around people that rally around that love that. My team and the people that work for me and the people that work with me, we are all, I feel like if we were athletes, we'd all be Olympians, right? We just are performing at the highest level. And my goal as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, is to have us all functioning at the highest level in our businesses, but also getting enough rest and not being workaholics and not being stressed out all the time. And that's a definite balance. That's definitely an art to be able to create. And of course, we're all learning as we go. I feel like we're just in a startup organization just because we just hired so many people. So I want you guys to think about and relate my story to yours. I am living in every single way I can describe my dream. I am living my dream. I have a white office. 10 years ago, I had a vision process that I did I was in a course and we were supposed to visualize our ideal day. And in my ideal day, I was in a white office coaching clients. And I had a waiting list for clients. That is my vision and that is my goal. And I am doing that. I own my own business. I have an amazing husband who I love and beautiful children. I don't struggle with my weight. I don't struggle with drinking. I am living my big dream. And I want to tell you that I earned it. I earned it by putting the work in on my mental health. Most important, the thing that I value most in my life is my mental health. I value my mental health over my physical health. People do it the other way. My mental health is so important to me because I think my mental health can help me with my physical health. And then I value my physical health so much, right? Those are hugely important to me. And then my family life and my work life. I am living my dream. And yes, I feel like ass half of the time. Success has not taken that away. But what I want you to do is think about my story, think about what I've created, and I want you to think about you and your story and what you want to create. And please don't tell me that you're too old or you're too young or you can't do it or I'm different than you. I want you to take those lessons from my business and see how you can apply them to your own. My wish for you is that you taste what it's like to earn success as an entrepreneur. What you have to overcome to become successful financially as an entrepreneur is the mental work that will change your life. This is why I love working with weight loss. This is why I love working with over drinking. And this is why I love working with entrepreneurs, because you have to get over all your mental garbage in order to be successful. And that is my specialty. My specialty is mental garbage and getting it cleaned up. And so I have learned a lot from my business. I have learned a lot from building a business. And I just want to tell you guys, I am just warming up. I feel like I just hit the ground now. We're just getting this train moving. I am going to take this business to the moon. I really am. I have no doubt, because here's the thing. I have overcome so much doubt to get where I am right now. I don't see any reason why I can't double down, triple down, quadruple it down. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So when I'm doing podcast 280, 380, 480, 580, we're going to revisit that doubt. We're going to revisit what I had to overcome to get to the next level. And I hope that you will do it with me. I hope you won't just sit back and be entertained by what I'm doing with my life. I want you to be entertained by your own life. I don't want your life to bore you. I want you to be like, dang. When someone says, what's new? I want you to say, let's get a cup of coffee. So much. All right, you guys, it has been such a joy to do podcast 180 with you all. It's been such a joy to do all 180 podcasts. I appreciate you all so much for going down this road with me, for learning, for committing, for being interested enough in your own mental health to pay attention. My hat is off to each and every one of you. And I want you to know that I am rooting for you. Whatever your dream is, I am rooting for you. Go get it. I'll talk to you guys next week.